Um, Folks, cognition in AAC users. Cognitive impairments often accompany cerebral palsy, autism, and other conditions affecting oral speech. 4 common domains affected by cognitive impairments are, these domains are regularly affected. Short-term memory. Retaining recent information. Where you put that thing that you got last week, where you think you vaguely remember your mom putting it in. Okay, short-term memory. Working memory. Holding and organizing information. What kind of working memory would be necessary to do that? It's unbelievable amount. What kind of attention would that take? Could this communicator be easily distracted? I think she would have gotten lost very early in that process. And what kind of perceptual processing? When I look at an overlay, a new overlay, let's just do it. Okay, don't you reorient yourself? Yeah, okay, well, how often would she be reorienting herself? Reorienting here, reorienting here, reorienting here. Okay. Perceptual processing. When you see a picture, do you automatically recognize it? If you haven't seen it in, say, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it in a week, if you're cognitively impaired, how long does it take to reorient yourself to this whole thing? Gail used to say, I don't know whether she's going to say this today, but we enjoyed it. She said, this was 20 years ago, she said, I have to use Minspeak. You see, so many of my clients are mentally retarded. She said, if you're trying for independent communication, people with cognitive issues can't do it on a page-based system. And I remember talking to somebody I really loved, a wealthy speech therapist out on Long Island whose husband is a movie producer, and I got to know her, and she was just a darling. And she said, "Oh, Bruce, with an auditory scanner, you've got to use Dynavox." And I thought, that means you can't see, and you're going from page to page. And I puzzled over that for weeks. And then I saw her again. I was in New York, or she was at, we were at some conference. I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, they got to get used to that one page with its 20 pictures." And I said, "Well, how do they go to other pages?" And she said, "Well, they don't know how to go to other pages by themselves." Well, bingo, you see what I mean. And then I understood. So, this business of hopping pages is very, very difficult for so many. And the perceptual processing is very difficult. But here you have a motor plan. You have a special rationale. That would be happy, might be the masks in the sun. Happy, unhappy might be, you can pick the thumbs down. Elated might be the rainbow. You see what I mean? And you'd have a separate thing, and these pictures of various, and each one would have its own motor plan. And guys, when you make this motion and this motion, and it says breakfast, that is a different experience from going to a couple pages. You have a unified motion, produces, your goal is right there for you. But you don't go to page and think a lot, then go to another page and then think some more. That's discontinuous action. Yes, it involves all sorts of other kinds of non-linguistic cognition. Guys, this motor plan and producing a sound is very much like having your hand do for you what your articulatory apparatus won't. And it tends to go into your inner speech. You know, I'm going to show you Dennis. This is a video that I show over and over again. By the way, being a guy and not having a wife, I still own that tie. At a certain point in my life, my mother stopped throwing away my ties. And, this was done in 1992. It's on an old touch talker. This guy is named Dennis Holman. And Dennis is witty, clever guy. Was thought to be mentally retarded. Of course, MR, at weird testing scores. Yeah, really bright guy. Okay. Okay, here we go.
I loved it.
I loved it.
We loved having you. Barry, could you photograph from the back of Dennis? Because I think that's the important part of what we're doing here. Let's watch this video screen.
To do that, I'm going to have to disconnect. Dennis is not going to be able to see himself
That's
anymore.
Barry Romick's voice. We were in Barry Romick's hotel room at Isaac in Philadelphia.
Otherwise,
I not that now it's to look at so it's not big D E L I am not that now it's to look at, so it's not a big deal. What we're talking about here is your week at Isaac, and you've been talking to a lot of people. And have you any reflections on the whole experience?
Well, deal with
You notice there's no overlay.
It was great couple days. I thought it was a great couple days.
See, there's no overlay.
We certainly enjoyed sharing some of this time with you. And to do this videotape, I interrupted a conversation you were having with Judith, who's a speech-language pathologist from California. So I think I'll just get out of the way and you can continue your conversation with Judith. That look at make good story. That we can make a good story.
Well, let's take a look at Dennis's language. I loved it. You know, Brown stage 1 and 2, I mean, for what it's worth. I'm not that nice to look at, so it's not a big D-E-L. This is an incredibly complex sentence, and it's called a result clause. I am that good looking. I am not that good looking. That's a very special dependent clause version. It's called in classically a result clause, and it requires a subjunctive in French and Spanish. I think in French that requires a subjunctive, doesn't it? It certainly does in Spanish, and Latin, the grandmother language there, definitely was a big deal. But there it is. I'm not that nice to look at, so it's not a big deal. I thought it was a great couple days. That would have made a good story. 33 words, 32 core words, 1 non-core. Not encore, but non-core. Okay. 96% core, fringe was 3%. And now, how many of you have heard that, let us say a couple things. Casual, everyday human language is simple vocabulary in complex structures. Ruminate on that again. Yeah, I mean, it's simple words in very often very complex structures. This second sentence, I'm not that nice to look at, so it's not a big deal. Okay, he used very simple words in complex structures. Now, I have heard it said over and over and over again that core vocabulary is for everyday stuff, but it's with fringe vocabulary that our personality begins to show through. Hands often go up and say, your extended vocabulary is where your personality comes through. Did Dennis's personality come through in this enough?
Yes.
I mean, this is incredibly personal. Yeah. I assure you, when you have a great scientist lying on his back in a psychiatrist's office talking about his childhood experiences, he's not using phenylketonuria in many of his sentences. You see what's going on here. Dennis, complex structures, very simple words, and he's expressing his personality beautifully. And